Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the September 8th, 2022 work session. We will call the meeting to order. Before we get started, though, I want to take a second for personal privilege and tell everyone thank you so much for the family, from my family to my family here, for everyone being at the funeral for my father, and the well wishes, the food, the thoughts, the prayers, everything. My family cannot thank you enough for doing that, and it was great to see everyone there, and I do greatly appreciate y'all, and I wanted to have that portrayed from my mouth to you, to your ears, and please pass along to your family members and everyone. Thank y'all so very much for the well wishes, and it meant the world to me and my family to have everyone there and to see you guys there in support. So thank y'all very much, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you. We'll jump into items of information. Dr. Spence.
I'm gonna let Mr. Blackstone start tonight. So he wants to talk about the homeless situation around Glynn Academy.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk. When Dr. Spence mentioned it to me, I know it's a topic that's hot right now in the community, but the concern I have is more from a safety issue with my campus. As you know, Glynn Academy is a very unique campus. We've got a lot of parking, a lot of different areas all around the campus. We do have 3 SROs. We now have 5 monitors, but we're still having a lot of issues with our homeless population approaching our kids after school, before school, and during school. And I say during school, not because my kids are not in school, but because a lot of them leave to go to the college. They go to the career academy, different places, and because of the way we're kind of spread out, I can't have eyes everywhere they go. And we've had, like I said, numerous instances where we've had folks coming up and asking our kids for money. We've had multiple issues where we've had, what's the wording I want to use here, less than appropriately clothed individuals on the sides of the air, around the school where the kids can visually see it. We just had about a couple of weeks ago, within the last couple of weeks, there was somebody on one of the stoops here at the board office early in the morning who was half dressed. And those are issues that our kids are faced with every day, and I don't get all the reports because some of the kids are just great about, they avoid it, they walk around, but the concerns I have is I can't always have my kids walking in groups. We've had people walk up on campus, and I say walk up on campus, it was during the summer, there was kids on campus for different events, so we didn't have our monitors and SROs in place, but we have had people in the past who have walked on campus prior to getting those pieces in place. So campus itself is secure. Outside of campus, we're still struggling with just the mental health side of it. Is really, I would say, was probably the biggest issue. We've had a lady who was screaming in Albany Street 2 or 3 days in a row. She wasn't really screaming at my kids. I don't know who she was screaming at, but we asked her to leave. She then turned her aggression towards our SROs in front of our kids, which became, again, as you can imagine, a disruption to start our school day, because it became a big distraction. Parents can drop off their kids, that kind of issue. I don't know what the solution is. I don't want to begrudge anybody who's on hard times, but the safety of my campus right now is my priority, and right now I have a lot of concerns about what we're having to deal with. And I just wanted you guys to hear it so that if we could all come at some point, I don't know, city, county, police, and when we do call the police, they're quick to respond as fast as they can. We know that they're very short-handed. At the same time, they'll handle the situation very professionally, and then we won't see that individual at least for the rest of that day. But we just got to work together as a community to try to figure out a solution, because it's getting bad around Glynn Academy. And I don't say that lightly, guys. I really don't. But I want to keep my kids safe, and I want to keep your kids safe, and I want to make sure that we get the right pieces in place.
Chief, did you want to add something?
Yeah, we've been I'm going to stand right here, sorry. We've been supplementing these patrols, around the afternoon, around Glynn Academy, as much as we possibly can with folks at the elementary level that can come in and help out. And I've been trying to come as much as I can in the afternoon and check on the perimeter on the outside of Glynn Academy as they dismiss, not only for the issues with the folks with vagrancy, but also with traffic issues with our own students that get out here and hot ride once they leave the school. So we've made some traffic stops and written some tickets and gotten word across there. We're not going to tolerate that. But at any given time, most of the time, my 4 officers that I can bring to that school after hours is probably more than Brunswick PD, and I'm not knocking Brunswick PD. Everybody's struggling for people. They've probably got more on that supplement than they have on an entire shift. So we're trying to take care of our business as much as we can. and which includes those kids from when they're out leaving to go to their cars and stuff. Personally, I have not witnessed a homeless person accost any of our kids. That's not to say it doesn't go on. I personally have not witnessed it, but then again, they see me and they go the other way. So, or any of the other officers there, we've had good presence in the afternoons trying to calm that issue.
Any questions for Mr. Blackstone or Chief Ellis?
Not a question, obviously this has become a big issue in the city and also county. I've had to call the police probably half a dozen to a dozen times just for my office. The ladies, my employees, I do not allow them to take the trash out to the dumpster because that's where, quite frankly, we probably have a camp right out there. Like you said, I don't know the answer to this problem, but I do feel like it's a community effort. And, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest, can we pass or make a resolution, vote on a resolution, to be able to send to the city to ask for help enforcing loitering, enforcing panhandling, and in any other, possible thing that we can help, help with this issue.
Certainly.
Those small homeless houses that are going up, hopefully that'll do a lot of help from pulling them from there and giving them a place to start or do whatever needs to be done.
And also the military village on G Street, slow coming up, they have many houses going up there. So I think the community, as a community, we are doing something. We're not just doing enough, we're not doing it fast enough. So we do have to put our head around the situation and do what's best for all of us. And that's protecting our children, protecting and also trying to provide for the less fortunate.
I think, as Mr. Blackstone stated, unfortunately a lot of these people could benefit from some mental health services, and that's part of our community too. I think that has to come together in all of this. So I know there's been news articles, a series run this week. So hopefully that's going to get, I don't know, that'll be what maybe starts the community coming together. And I would say the school system could be maybe part on that too, or at least, like Hank said, give the resolution to say, hey, this is affecting us as well.
And they used to do this. I mean, there's tons of ideas out there. I don't know if you've gone to the well or where, to try to just talk to the folks that manage the well and some of the folks that take advantage of the services. But, when we were at Greer years ago, we had a program called Watchdogs, and the parents showed up and dads were just walking around the edge of the campus. And so the only problem with that is, I don't want it to turn into an altercation, but I really don't want it to turn into anything that happens to our children first. So if it takes saying, being proactive, say, just do us a favor and stay away from the campus. If you don't, we're taking you to jail for whatever you can take them for. I mean, it's gotten to a point where, it's just gotten to be kind of bad, and we want to help provide anything we can, but we got to be proactive and go just have the conversation. I think we owe it to everybody to have the conversation. It's off limits, and don't approach our kids. But there's tons of stuff I'm sure we can do, but I appreciate y'all being proactive about it. But it's gotten to be such a big issue. But it's not just a city issue; it's the county and sheriff's department. Everybody's involved. So churches have gotten involved. My church is writing letters to the city. I'm just going to fall on deaf ears or not, but everybody's trying to do a little something to see if we can fix the problem.
And I would say again that just the pieces that I've seen, and I have gone to the well. We've gone over and asked them to please make an announcement. We kind of know who shows up in our area, and so we don't really talk directly to them, because what I will tell you is the biggest issue we're running into is mental health. When you're trying to rationalize with somebody who's not rational, it doesn't always go well, and so that would be the biggest thing that I've seen, is there's a lot of mental health issues in the folks that we see that are causing issues for our kids. Again, the panhandling's a little bit different. We can talk to them once, and that usually stops. But yeah, that's the biggest issue.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Griner.
Yes, sir. did you want to just go, did you want to preface it with anything, Dr. Spence?
Well, we've been looking at our CARES Act 2 and CARES Act 3 budgets, and we were not able to hire all of the extra teachers and extra paraprofessionals that we had planned to hire for CARES Act 2. And so we want to give a retention stipend in January to our employees who have stayed with us and are working with us now. We need to use that money on salaries, and I think we need to give it back to all of our employees. So if you want to go through that.
Yeah, that's, so what we came up with was, we met last week to kind of go through the remaining funds of ESSER 2. We have until, technically it'll end September of this year, but there was an amendment that came along with the grant at some point in time that actually extends the grant until September of next year. So we have to spend all the funds by September of 23. So basically, looking at a retention stipend that would be around $4.5 million with FICA included, which is the payroll tax piece, be $2,000 for all our full-time employees, $1,000 for part-time, and I think roughly looking at a count, we probably have between 70, 75 part-time. And then with our subs, what we came up with was doing $25 per day worked. So I think we came up with like 77 school days.
If they work every day, it would be around 2,000.
It'd be close to 2,000. So it's kind of, we just felt like this is a way to give back. Again, as Dr. Spence mentioned, it's mostly due to, there were some items that were under budget, but also mostly positions that just weren't filled. And just trying to figure out a way, to spend this money in the most efficient way and to reward our employees that have been with us. The intent would be to, the proposed pay date of this would be January the 13th, which is that Friday right before the 15th. We thought that's a good time also if you think between the winter break and then February is kind of a long payroll period because we pay the last day worked in December, and then you have to the end of February before you get the end of January before you get another. So there's a big gap in there. So we just thought that would kind of help with that as well. So that was kind of the reason why we came up with January, and then we would look at everybody who comes back to work when school starts back in January, who would be included in that.
Any questions on the retention stipend?
Yeah, so is that,
Go
whether
ahead.
all categories, teachers,
Every
maintenance,
employee.
everybody that's quote unquote full-time, whether they be
Yes, sir.
hourly or salaried or whatever else?
Except for Dr. Spence.
Right.
He's not included. So.
Okay. Is there anything, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, I know it's on the agenda a ways down, but is there anything in addition to any groups, for instance, bus drivers? I mean, I know they'll be included in this, is that correct?
Yes, sir. They will be.
I know by definition, are bus drivers full-time? I mean, it's a kind of a part-time job anyway, right?
They
Because of the
are.
hours?
They are considered
They are
full-time.
full-time. Is there anything in addition to the stipend we talked about? I don't want to jump ahead, we can talk about it later if you want to, when we get
Right,
to that point.
we're going to talk about it when the bus thing comes up.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do the stipends go towards TRS?
I don't think in the past they have, so yeah, they would not go towards TRS. I think TRS requirements are so stringent around that. I don't think in the past they have.
I think we had bonuses in the past that did go towards.
We have done that in the past, but this is a retention stipend, so. And we have to call it a retention stipend for us to use CARES Act money for it. Any other questions?
Thank y'all.
Mr. Griner, down on 3A.
Yes, sir. Do the July financials. So you have before you the financial report for July. July is one of those months where everything's a little bit slower just because of, a lot of our property tax money's already come in, so it's mostly just our state QBE money, and then we have the salary piece. So we're on the revenue side at about 4%, and then on the expenditure side at almost 4% as well. We should be about 8%. So again, we're kind of trailing behind a little bit, which is good. We're under budget again, so that's good. On the budget amendments, the biggest budget amendment is the literacy program that y'all approved a couple months ago. What we found is the link to that contract with ESSER's, we were going to use ESSER's money, ESSER 3 or CARES Act 3 to pay for that. What we found was the link to that contract extended past the final expiration date of. So I think when we started looking at it from a federal program standpoint, we weren't able to do that. However, we can charge indirect costs to the ESSER 3 money and bring that back into the general fund. So the expenditure now is in the general fund, but we're going to reimburse the general fund for that money from ESSER 3. So it's kind of a way to get it back in there. So it is coming out of ESSER 3. We just couldn't do it because of the link to the contract. So that's the $2.4 million is what y'all approved. There's no difference there. It's just recording the expenditure on the general fund and then showing the revenue coming back in. So. The other amendments, the on behalf payments is a number we get from the Department of Education. Andre and I talked about that. I think the number just kind of jumped up a little bit. It's a bookkeeping entry. There's no cash. That actually is just a number we get from them. So we bumped that up just to reflect probably a truer reflection of that than last year. I think she said that's kind of bumped up this year, the adjustment they gave us for that. The rest of those are just small amounts. CTAE funds, I know Dr. Deppenhart's going to talk about that, so I won't get into that, but that's the budget amendment there as well for that. And then any other questions? I know when we get to eSplost, we hit over 3.2 million, which is the highest amount we've had. So that trend continues just to be very positive. Looking at probably full collection definitely before the end of 2024 on the $112 million cap we had. So, again, we like for it to hit the first month of a quarter because then we can collect the last 2 months. So we can get that extra, hopefully $5 to $6 million. So that would be our goal. Again, we have no control over that, of course, but that's what we hope for. So, and I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have on the financials.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Griner.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Let's go to Mr. Dimsdale.
Good evening. Quick rundown. We haven't had quite the pace that we've had because a lot of our attention has been refocused on maintaining what we have going on in the schools. We've got everything up and open and running. We've talked to you about that, so I'm going to skip over a few of those projects we were on punch list just for to save time. Our Glynn Academy edition, we're still looking at October 13th for the delivery of the flooring. That's our main holdup, and then October 31st is a projected date to that for that completion of that. Our St. Simon's Elementary School, we're same thing. We're all on track. Still waiting on that main switch gear for electrical there. We have some kitchen renovations, phase 2s for some of the projects that we have, Needwood, Needwood, Oglethorpe, and St. Simon's Elementary. We just had our opening bid, and we have all in the process of choosing that equipment, and you'll see that in October's meeting. We'll present that to you. Satilla Marsh, we're looking at Dr. Spence, did you want to talk to him about Satilla Marsh renovations?
Well, Satilla Marsh, we're going to remove those portables. The first thing we're going to do is build extensions on the back of the wings at Satilla Marsh and go ahead and put classrooms on the back, kind of like we did at Needwood back there a few years ago. And then we'll be able to take the portables and remove them. We won't need them. And then we'll start renovating each wing over each summertime. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put new classrooms on the back, 2 to 3 on each wing, so that we won't need those portables.
What's their enrollment right now?
Around 800, isn't it?
Terry?
Just right at 785, 790.
So we're really not adding classrooms to increase capacity, because don't you run into lunchroom issues and stuff, right, when we get too big? We're just trying to make more room for what we have.
Right, because we're using, how many portables are we using out there?
Yeah.
Used to be 4.
There's
so.
8 classrooms outside.
Right.
2 of those are homerooms, and the others are resource type settings.
We just basically want to remove the portables. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see an elementary school go to 1,000 students. I don't want to do that.
Yes, but I don't think they can handle it there
Right.
with the size of the cafeteria and stuff. But this is not doesn't have to be in that next meeting, but y'all remember the Boudreaux report? Can we get that report again where Al used to list out all the facilities, or all the schools anyway, current capacity, total students, number of portables? There's a spreadsheet somewhere. It's probably on somebody's computer, but
Okay.
I'll probably have a copy of it somewhere. But it's not anything urgent. It's just been good to look at occasionally to see
We can find it.
where our capacities are and taking those sort of things.
So we'll be removing 8 potables and replacing with 8 classrooms?
6, I didn't see where all of those portables were being used. I know that 2 of them are housing homerooms. The others are not being used all the time. So I think 3 classrooms on each end of each wing would be appropriate.
And Mr. Halsey, our plan that we have going forward right now does take into account the extension of the cafeteria to meet those guidelines that you were talking
gotcha.
about.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other questions? You want to go on down, Mr. Dimsdale, to transportation update? Mr. Henson is out of town doing edgenuity training. Actually, he's traveling back, but he will not be able to do this. So Mr. Dinsdale and Ms. Seals can help us here.
All right, we've been asked to kind of give an update for transportation here in Glynn County Schools, so I thought the best way to give an update is to give some comparative data from around the country. This is a national survey, and just to skim over, I don't want to read it for you, but 51% of the respondents across the nation say that they have a severe shortage. 78 respondents say that that shortage is getting worse, and 50% say that the rate of pay is a major factor affecting those. So that's what we're hearing from the nation, and if you go ahead up to the next slide. So we look at some things nearer Glynn County, and this is Savannah, Chatham County Public School System. There are 219 bus drivers to cover 300 routes right now. So that's kind of what they're looking at. They're facing driver shortages, and they're having to cut some of their services. They cut some of their services last year and even had a deeper cut at the beginning of this year, as far as service was concerned. All right, and next. Just some Atlanta numbers for Forsyth County, 70 drivers short. They're covering with sub-drivers, supervisors. Drivers are doubling routes, so they're having those same late routes that you're hearing about from the community. This is not something that's just for our community. It's something that's happening not only statewide, but nationwide. Okay, next slide. Here are some numbers from the Atlanta area, so you can see we're currently running about 15 to 20% shy of what we need to make it function on a regular basis. And some of these numbers, what I've done is I've gone through and just showed you the vacancies, but for the size of the school system, it seems like most school systems across the state and nation are running about 20% plus or minus 5% as far as their shortage is concerned. All right, move forward. This year is kind of an assessment of us compared to those. We had 69 regular routes and only 60 drivers to begin this school year, so we had 9 regular routes that were uncovered. And then we had 22 sped routes and only 21 sped drivers, so there was 1 route that was uncovered as well. We have 5 drivers on top of that that are currently out on long-term medical, and 11 routes that need full-time drivers there as well. So in 2018-2019, prior to COVID, we had 77 regular drivers and 21 sped drivers, which put us close to 100 drivers overall. So you can see that we're running at that a 20% deficit as well, and that's why you're seeing those late buses. Anytime that a bus driver calls in sick, then there is no one to cover that route. So that route becomes something that a existing bus driver that does that route has to go back and pick up, and that's where you're seeing the late calls from. All right, next slide. What we've done to address this over the last few years, we just kind of summarize that, so if you can go on up. Just to give you an idea where we were, in 2018, looking forward, we tried to make some moves then. We have referral incentives, new driver incentives, and attendance incentives that were done at that time. And there was an issue even prior to COVID, but it wasn't near as deep. Go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So in 2021, we raised the attendance incentive. So you can see the raises there. We doubled those. Next slide. And this summer, we brought on some coaches and sped teachers by offering them a $2,500 stipend, one-time stipend to get their CDL license, and that was successful. We'll see in the next slide, I think, is where those numbers show up. Well, we also have job fairs, and those job fairs happen quarterly. So we're out there kind of beating the bushes to get more people to come in. And next slide. This is some of the specifics about pay raises, and you can look quickly at these. You can see the differences that we have in each of these positions as we scroll through. There's your sub-driver pay. Here's what we're looking at right now as far as the raises are concerned. So there's been an effort to move in the direction of raising the pay to be more competitive, not just with other school systems, but with existing jobs in the community that might pull drivers away. And I think that we aim for being in the top 3 in our RISA. Is that correct, Dr. Spence?
Yes.
All right, and then next slide. So you can see our bus drivers, they went from $13.81 to $17 an hour to start. And then there's some other numbers there with attendance and sub-bus monitors as well. All right. And then this is what we've accomplished this summer. We hired 10 new drivers this summer. We had 6 coaches that have already completed their CDL certification, took advantage of that stipend earlier. And also, we've had 1 teacher at GICA and 1 special ed teacher that have completed their CDL certification as well. And we have 3 more coaches and 1 monitor that are in processing right now. They just have a couple of things to tie up loose ends, and they'll be certified as well. All right, next slide. Oh, that's it. Okay, can't scroll up after that. So, with all this said, our aim was to show you a standard for comparison nationwide, statewide, show you where we are, and let you know that there are lots of efforts going into making it better and better, and just to give you some evidence of that going on. If you have any questions, I'll entertain those now.
As an effort to continue to try to bring in more people, not just transportation, but also food service and custodians, we've scheduled job fairs with Goodwill every month. So we plan to be there every month, starting this month, with a job fair where we're recruiting. We usually have a pretty good turnout. Goodwill's been a very good partner with us as well. So we'll be there to try to get people, and we have hired people from those particular fairs. We also had the $500 stipend as well that went to bus drivers at the beginning of the year.
That's right. It's worked well for custodian hiring as well. Another area that we have deficit right now.
So currently, how many bus drivers do we need?
We probably need about 15 more to make it work right. And then traditionally you have about a 10% sick or out for appointments kind of deal. That's not normally what the numbers run. So if we had 15 to 20, we would probably be at a position where we would be able to not have late routes, I would think.
One of the things we're really focusing on is looking at the number of special ed drivers. So we have, make sure I'm right, Dr. White, we have 119 special education students who ride a bus, and that takes up 21 drivers because of the way it's spread out. And so we're looking at using cafeteria workers and special education paraprofessionals and even teachers that can go get the special education students, because in many cases there's only 4 or 5 of those students on the buses, and we can use some of those other bus drivers to run some of our other routes. So we're looking at that closely, and we're going to meet on Monday to really dig into that.
I know you can't use them for what you're talking about because of accessibility, but are we fully utilizing the shuttle buses that we bought? You know, I mean, I know for the golf team, so they don't take up a full bus to go on a trip when it's 8 people. I can't remember what the capacity is on those, but I know you don't have to have a CDL. You have
It's
some training,
14 plus 1. The
Right.
driver is the plus 1. As far as the ones that were purchased that function as special ed routes, there's 21, I believe, that are running special ed route right now. There are 21. Now, am I to understand that there are activity buses that are purchased for?
We have 2
Yeah, that's
activity
what I'm-
buses at each high school and
Right.
each middle school, and we're not maximizing those, no.
Yeah, I don't even see them at need whatever.
But
I mean,
because those, you have to have, if you're going to transport on a route, you have to have a CDL even to drive those.
sure.
But if you're going to take, and I don't know why the difference is, make sure I'm right, if you're going to an activity,
Right.
then you don't have to have a CDL. And I don't know why there's a difference, but there is.
And it is level of training, and it's kind of one of those areas that's fuzzy state level, but there's a minimum amount of training that's recommended by the state for someone to drive an activity bus.
I know it's more difficult these days. I mean, I don't expect the head football coaches to drive to Athens and back with the kids. You know, that's a big ask. But I mean, we were in high school. I mean, the soccer coach had his CDL. The golf coach had his CDL. They were required to have it, and that's a lot of times that's why you got the job. So you were more of a supervisor than a coach sometimes. But if they're not utilizing even the baseball team, if you took 2 of those shuttle buses, or the volleyball teams or whatever else, to try to make sure we're maximizing that, so the buses and the drivers that need to be on physical routes can do that before we go out and make a knee-jerk reaction to anything else. But the other, I mean, I've talked to teachers and principals and people and we've got a lot of teachers and principals and coaches that are driving routes every day. You know, we get calls every day about buses being, and that's just part of it. We all get it. But I've talked about, I don't want to upset anybody in the room or any teacher or anything else, but I mean, I know a lot of people that drive buses or used to did it just because they need the benefits, right? So, I mean, a majority of your check might go towards your portion of health insurance. What if we picked up that employee the portion? You know, let's say if your family health insurance costs $600 a month, we pick up $300 already or whatever. What if we pick up their portion of that? And we're not talking about a bunch of people. Like, you can't do it for the whole system, but Or if you elect not to have health insurance in the system, we give an extra $2 an hour, or whatever, somehow to increase that. And then I think long-term, we need to probably start looking at, I don't know if it's next year or the next year, but staggered schedule. I mean, I don't see that this is gonna get any better. So I think we need to look, like today, like, what can we do? And then, in 2 or 3 years, what do we need to be doing to try to make sure we can get the routes covered? Because it's really not, it's still a part-time job, right? I mean, it's kind of hard for a young person to do this as a career because it's not
5
all year.
hours.
And then a retiree's kind of like, I'm not putting up with getting pepper sprayed on the bus. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to recruit people, but if you can make other incentives other than money, whether it be health insurance or dental and vision, I mean, we're spending a lot of money on other things. And so I'd be open, I don't know if everybody else would, to looking into some of that stuff. I don't know if it'd help or not. Y'all would know better than we do to, we'll pick up your portion of health insurance if you'd be willing to get your CDL and come on board or whatever. So just things like that. Just don't be afraid to bring it, don't say that's a crazy idea, because I think we're kind of desperate for making it happen.
We're looking at everything, and thank you for the information, because we're certainly looking at that, so.
Definitely.
Thank y'all. I know it's a tough job. If you haven't been out there, like in the mornings, I mean, you need to take some uphill before you go in there, because it's crazy. Like, if you can't handle it, I had to walk back outside because it's nuts. They do a great job with the resources they have. So just want to support it any way we can.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
And then the furniture, Mr. Dempsey, at the bottom, 3F.
Well, as you all know, this room that we're in is going to be a parking lot pretty soon. So with that said, we've come up with a plan on how we could make the new digs look a little better. So we're gonna, so here's a 3D rendering of what we're proposing for the new area. Now the tables are wider. The room is a good bit wider. So the table, I think now 16 will be 20 feet wide. And then we're looking at some nicer things, some high back chairs. I've had the opportunity to sit in those chairs for a little while, and I know in long meetings that they don't feel great from personal experience. And this will be the executive session conference room that will be right off the back of the boardroom. You'll turn around, leave through 2 doors, and then you'll have your executive session right behind the boardroom. We're building that currently.
We'll now go to the first one.
So this is one of the things was asking, make sure that we could get this stuff by November. And we had this vendor who is TIPS consortium that they're part of. And they tell me they can get it in 6 weeks. So with your approval, we can go ahead and get that process started and get this furniture in there and be ready to roll in November. And they were very good about helping to get this stuff together quickly as well.
Everything that we use on the new board office, we will use out of our capital funds, out of our local capital funds. We will not use eSPOS money because that was not on the eSPOS referendum, so. Any questions?
How soon before we have a number, and you may have said this and I apologize, on raising this building and paving this parking lot and fencing it and doing all the things? Are we working on that yet about what it's going to cost to make this spot functional when we're out of it? That'd be a little farther down the road.
Yeah, we haven't really looked at the price. We've looked at the time that it might take.
I can tell you this. I've looked at parking space prices, and it usually comes average out to be about $6,100–6,200 per parking spot. Is about what it costs to build a parking spot these days.
And how many parking spaces we?
That's concrete now. That's not the way we have it.
Oh, okay.
Right. He's talking about concrete. We're not going to
That's
concrete
building
this.
Yeah.
You almost had a stroke. I mean,
I figured that.
I have a few mini ones a day, but that was a bigger one.
I figured
that is building. That is true. That's building.
I figured that we'll have close to 100 extra parking spots for the Glynn Academy kids. When we're gone, we're not using our parking spots, and then we do this. But we're just going to do gravel for now. So it's not going to cost that much.
But it'll be worth that much at some point to the people that are parking there.
Do me a favor though and bring us, if y'all are okay with it, bring us asphalt. I mean, bring us like what you would like to do to make it right long term. And then if you want to do the gravel price too, just bring us both.
The Egmont Street parking lot is actually on East Spot Street. So. That is an East Boston project. So, but first, we got to tear this down.
I got you.
Any questions on the furniture? Thank you.
We can use these old bricks to build something in addition to Brunswick High School. Since that's the deal. Just make sure we save as soon as we can.
Yes, sir.
We need to
Okay,
save all
thank
our
you.
old bricks.
Yeah, that's right.
I just wanted to mention one thing for people that might not know. Y'all use this facility, this room here, and there'll be the room at the new location for things other than our meetings.
We use it
So
way
it's
more
not like
than
it's
just
just
this meeting.
being used a couple times
This
a
is
month.
used 2 or 3 times a day.
Wanted to make that clear.
Y'all had big interviews last time we got.
We've
big
had
interviews, so, yeah,
interviews, we
interviews
have
for big-
tribunals, we meet as a cabinet, we meet as a curriculum team. I mean, we use it, like I say, 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I do have a question. The parking over at the old Alabama where we're going, I hear that's packed, or is it, I just heard someone say it's kind
I've
of
never been
busy.
there, and not have a space to park in.
Whenever we all move over there, do you think, I mean, our parking should be
We'll have
fine?
we'll have to find some parking. We're looking at that semicircle, coming off of it, and making parking spots there, making parking spots over where that portable is on the other side.
Right.
But most of the employees are gonna park here, and there's plenty of room behind that building that we could add parking to. There's a basketball
I just think
court.
about if we have our meetings, if we have a big
Right.
group come up here, whatever, so.
There's way more parking there than there is here. All right, thank you, Mr. Dinsdale. Let's go to the
Thank you.
good report.
So the one thing that I'd like to bring up that may be interesting is the performing arts has started. They picked the design team. They've also picked the construction manager and the program manager, and they're in one of the early design phases now, and they're looking at a January 25 completion. So that is moving along. And then the other interesting thing about the SPOS dollars coming in, it's following the same pattern as last year, just a little bit more. So I guess the same activities are happening around here, but just more people partaking. I don't know if, I don't remember if Mr. Dimsdale talked about the chillers at Jane Macon and Glynn Middle, but they're due to be installed next summer.
Yeah, I did not, we approved at last meetings, and so the board's aware of that, and that is the plan is to have them put in during the spring.
And then the gym floor, that had to be, the schedule had to be extended because of the installer.
That's right.
And the turf and lighting projects are on schedule and finishing up. And I think that's it.
Any
Cover
questions?
the rest.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys do for us.
Yes.
Ms. Seals, hiring update.
Good evening.
Hey.
Hey. Every year I come to you and just talk to you about how we ended the year and how we began the year. So at the top of the page, you'll see our numbers in regards to deaths, resignations, retirements, non-renewals, and I have to say up front, this is certified staff. We did have some classified staff members to pass away last year as well too, but this is typically our report on what's impacting the schools. So this is a certified report, so I want to make that very clear. One thing to note is that our attrition rate or attrition percentage stayed the same as the year before at a 12.2% of our attrition. So then the number of vacancies you see there, 234.5, those are actual positions we posted for this year between February and August 19, 2022. Those are how many positions we posted for. Certified teaching, various positions. And then at the bottom, you'll see the vacancies as of August 19th we're constantly hiring people, so this is something that continues to move, and some of these positions have been filled, but I had to have a stopping point, and so I chose right after the last August board meeting we had.
Any questions from Ms. Seals?
Thank you for comparing it to last year. That helps me, because looking at a bunch of numbers means nothing if you got nothing to compare it to.
Yes, sir.
It's good to hear it's the same.
This is on a different subject. Again, it could be a future board meeting agenda item, but can we look at, and again, this is just classroom teachers that I'm looking for, but total number of teachers, classroom teachers by school, and then how many hold current certifications and how many aren't certified yet? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay,
sir, those
so-
who are seeking certification.
That's right. And in that number, if it's not too much trouble, if you want to, doesn't necessarily matter, it might be interesting to look at, let's say, Glynn Academy has 5 that aren't certified, or 2 of those people that are in our parapro program that we just did, or something like that. You don't have to list them out necessarily, unless, because it may be too many, but I'd like to see how many we have that aren't.
Yes, sir. I've
Yeah,
got that.
certified.
I have that data, but I just don't have it on top of my head.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Ms. Seals, can you review real quick the program that we're doing with the college for the parapros?
That's coming up. That's my
Oh,
next
is it?
report.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. It's okay. You want me to go ahead and dive into that, Dr.
Any other
Smith?
questions about the hiring? Okay, yeah, let's move on to the employee education program.
And we're calling it the overall, I'm going to talk about a couple different things tonight, but we kind of call it our teacher pipeline program, because everything we're doing is impacting that teacher pipeline. So in the first slide is our employee education program update. Excuse me, the second slide is that. And by the numbers, as you can see, we had 56 applicants, which I think was a great response to it. I wish we could have taken all 56, but we just couldn't do that.
So they're the ones that didn't get in because they called.
I know.
So, but we do appreciate the college working with us and trying to get that.
15 were chosen for the program. As of the creating of this report, 13 completed everything, with 11 scheduled to begin and have started, and 1 scheduled to begin spring, and 1 has dropped the program because they no longer work for us. So, of course, they don't work for us, we don't pay for them. And so I sent out letters to everyone who did not get into the program August 5th, and while we want to take everybody, but we have a budget, and we have to stay within that budget for the entire year. And but September the 29th, 2022, we are having a meeting at the college, and I have to say that the college was a big part of how we chose people who were going to be a part of the program. They looked at how many credits they had, if they had an associate's degree or not, how much college they had, what their GPA was. All of those pieces played a part in that, because if they didn't have a high enough GPA, there were things they would have to do in order to get the GPA high enough to get into the program. So those are all pieces that played a part in determining who would be a part. But I encourage everyone who did not get into the program, Mr. Mansell, was given that letter and asked to come to the September meeting.
And I reminded them of that as well, so that they could see what would be coming up in the future or whatnot. I think it was also a good idea. One of the prerequisites, I guess, was to, if you had credits, you actually, you could move through faster, and we could actually, use you quicker.
That's exactly
So
right.
that was, I think, a good idea as well, to get those folks that already have credits and that are closer to actually receiving their diploma or their accreditation. That way we could actually put them into the system quicker, so.
The number of credits counted heavily, as well as the GPA counted heavily, as to who was brought into the program this time
Yes,
around.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I understand that all were not eligible, but will the ones who were not selected this time have an opportunity
To
reapply again?
Yes, absolutely. We just got to stay within the budget. Stay within the budget. The next one is the paraprofessional internship that we're doing. We currently have 3 paraprofessionals who've been approved for this year. We have several. What this is paraprofessionals who are becoming teachers, and we did not want them to have to leave their jobs because we want them to come back and teach for us. But I have to say that we had several we could not work with because their universities did not allow them to do that. So we extended it to them, but their universities did not allow them to do that.
Our local college does allow them.
Our local college does. And the last slide is our Georgia TAP update fall semester. We have 5 classroom teachers who are participating in that, and that's where we're using CARES Act funds to pay for teachers who are pursuing alternative certification. So we had 5 start this fall, excuse me.
It's also my understanding that we're one of the few lucky ones that actually have a college or secondary, post-secondary school that's actually working with us
That's true.
to do
That's
that.
very
Correct.
true.
That is
And,
correct.
So we definitely want to thank them for putting that program together, or helping us with it, because my understanding that there's a lot of other counties and cities that have someone that close to them that they're not helping them at all, so we do appreciate that. So
Georgia Southern is not helping the people in that area at all.
And several counties are looking at this program to see how we work it,
Pilot.
so that they can then see how they can do it.
it's awesome. Thank you.
We'll be happy to increase the program if we can increase the budget, so we might be talking to you about that in the next couple of months.
That's what I was gonna say, if you need more money, we're making teachers,
Mhm.
that's what we need.
Cool. So,
Can I drop back real quick to bus drivers? We talk about this every time it comes up. I never can remember. How long does it take to get your CDL? Is it weeks? Is it a couple months? I can't remember.
It depends on the
Oh,
person, but
right.
the fastest I've ever seen it is 3 weeks. And that is somebody that is just hitting the ground
On it.
and big time, so, yeah. But normally, average, probably 3 months, 4 months.
What's it cost?
We had those coaches get their bus driver's license in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
The class itself only took about, what, a week?
Right.
And then, but the problem is
crowd.
that they have to find the time to drive with someone there, ride with someone there. That takes time, the hours that they have to put in. The summertime is the perfect time to do it.
And this is a stupid question, I apologize in advance, but do we have to go through like a DOT approved site? There's like if you have an OSHA representative on your job site, can we hire a CDL trainer to train our people, or is that allowed? Or do you
We're
have to
doing
go through the Department of Transportation? And
We have,
We have our own
Does that make sense?
We have
CDL
trainers.
that wear 2 hats. They work for the DOT and work for the school.
Okay, I got
We
you.
have those.
We have, I think, 5 of them.
5 of them.
Okay.
We have been looking for ways to do that more efficiently.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we could do that or not. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hills. Mr. Deppenhart.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As I'm sure you're aware, each year the CTA director has to brief the board on the upcoming year's CTAE budget and gain board approval. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the CTA grants that we've received. Slide, please. Currently, for this upcoming school year, we're going to be receiving 9 CTAE grants totaling just more than $374,000. And I'll very briefly go over each one and how those funds are going to be expended. Slide, please. The first 2 grants are extended day grants, which cover our CTE teachers as well as our ag teachers. It's a total of 26 teachers that receive extended day funding. That money is directly attributed just to extended day. It totals about $119,000 of those dollars. Slide, please. We have 2 different extended year grants that we receive. The first of which goes to paying the part of the salary. It's a 50-50 grant that we match locally to pay for the work-based learning coordinators over the summer months. And then for our 3 ag teachers, 2 at GICA and 1 at Jane Macon Middle School, for the days that they put in during the summertime. And that's about $21,000. Go ahead, slide. Our supervision grants, we receive a $36,000 grant for our youth apprenticeship program. That goes to offset the salary of the work-based learning / youth apprenticeship coordinator, Susan Falk. And then we receive roughly $28,000 CTA supervision grant, which goes to offset the salary of the CTA director. Slide. Going on to the Perkins 5 grants, which are the federal grants. We do receive a professional development grant that's $12,000. This money we don't actually receive. It's given to us, but then immediately taken right back by the state. This goes to fund the CTAE Resource Network, which pays for all the professional development and conferences through that network. And then we receive a $20,000 Perkins Reserve grant. This grant is used, 60% of it is used to fund EOPA testing at the end of the pathways, roughly $11,000 of it, and then the remaining balance is used to offset the cost of a testing coordinator to administer those EOPAs. Slide. And then last and most importantly is our largest portion of it, our $142,000, which is our Perkins Improvement Grant. This money is spent directly to either improve current CTAE programs or create new ones across the district. Slide. And I've broken down for you how I anticipate spending these funds this year. This is based off of how they were spent last year and different pathways and programs that we want to improve going into this school year. I do have the flexibility with superintendent approval to adjust this throughout the year, but this is the initial breakdown of how I believe it'll be spent. We typically spend about $20,000 on web-based licensing throughout the course of the year. That covers the 2 high schools as well as GICA and the 4 middle schools. We spend about $22,000 on teacher travel. This covers both to professional development as well as teachers traveling with students to CTSO events and competitions. Roughly $47,000 for dues, registration, and fees. That sounds like a high sum, but that not only covers registration for conferences and professional development, but also pays for the rest of our EOPA testing. The Perkins Plus does not cover that in its entirety. Roughly $5,000 for supplies, $20,000 for new equipment, and an additional $20,000 for computer equipment, which includes printers and any technology-related items. And then lastly, 5% of the grant is allocated to, for the CTAE director for travel as well as going to grants and conferences. Subject to your questions.
Any questions for Dr. Deppenhart? I will say that in the past, our CEO of GICA has served as a CTA director, but for the past year, Dr. Deppenhart has served as our CTA director, and he will continue to do so when we hire a CEO. That person will not serve as our CTA director. He has done a great job, and we're going to keep him doing this. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Yes, sir.
where are we with the, it's kind of off subject, but the equipment simulator?
It is en route. It has been ordered. I anticipate having it within the next 2 weeks. Once we get it on site and get it set up and have Mr. Holland trained on it, we're going to do a ribbon cutting ceremony, ask Seaboard to come in and some other folks as well, maybe from SEFCA and some few other agencies.
Awesome, let us know.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you so much, we appreciate you.
Next, let's talk about our policy that we need to put in place for board meetings, public addressing the board. Now, we have a policy for public participation, but Senate Bill 588 says that we have to also include how we're going to handle, have a rules of conduct piece. So if you'll open that up. So we have exactly the same thing that we have for our public participation policy, and we have added at the bottom our rules of conduct. Basically what we are doing now, how we would handle if someone was not acting the way they were supposed to act when they're speaking to the board. So we're going to ask that you will have to table that, Ms. Madala, and then bring it up at our next board meeting. Any questions? This is basically, Dr. Whitehead, we looked at some other policies and wrote the bottom piece and just kind of kept it similar to what we're doing. Any questions there? Mr. Driggers, you're going to talk, or Dr. Green?
Yes. So I have the renewal of our Edgenuity license, what we use for credit accrual remediation, as well as the core curriculum for our students who are at GOC. And you'll see a quote that I am currently trying to negotiate down. It'll still be over $40,000, but it was for our 4 middle schools, GOC, and the 2 high schools. And we are currently offering a virtual option by case. And we've only had 2 severe cases that we've even considered this year outside of what traditionally happens in those credit accrual classes or credit recovery classes at high school. And so I'm trying to negotiate a technicality because we have to, for state reporting, provide the option of a teacher of record being the school of record for the student in order for them to not be withdrawn to GLC if it's a severe case. And like I said, we only have 2, so I'm trying to negotiate that, but it'll still be over $40,000 and need board approval. It could remain the same because they may not believe that my claim is valid, but I'm hoping to get it a little less than that.
Thanks for at least trying.
Any questions for Dr. Green?
You're a good negotiator. Mediator.
Finally, Mr. Driggers, the new boardroom sound system.
All right, so as Mr. Dinsdale mentioned, we're getting ready to move over to the new boardroom soon. We put out an RFP for the new AV system in the boardroom. This includes flat panel displays instead of projectors, new microphones that are wireless in case we decide to rearrange the room for any reason, so we're not tied down to one location. And because this room is substantially larger than this room, we've decided to also mic the room so people sitting back in the audience area can hear, just to make sure everything's up to standard, OSHA certified, all that good stuff. We went ahead and put it out as an RFP and let professional systems integrators put their bids out for the project. We had about 7 or 8 people attend the pre-bid, did measurements, got all the information, and we had 3 actual submitted proposals back. We went through the proposals. There were 3. The cheapest was $101,000 from Stagefront and Savannah. They're the closest, and we've done a lot of projects with them before, so we're recommending we go with them. The other 2 were substantially higher, $117,000 and $120,000. Also, looking over the equipment that the other 2 provided, Stagefront stuck with the equipment that we requested more so than the other 2. Some of them kind of went proprietary stuff or just off-the-wall stuff that we had never heard of before. So with your approval, we'd like to award the bid to Stagefront to come in and do the new AV system for the new boardroom.
We will also be able to use this for tribunals. It won't just, again, it won't just be used for board meetings, but we can use this for tribunals.
Yeah, same idea that we're doing in here. You'll have access to the screens. We'll have additional hookups for either a laptop or a computer out in the boardroom, like the one that's up there normally, as well as one from the control room, so we can still present for you guys to see. Rather than projectors, because of the number of windows in that room, we're doing 6 flat panel displays, 2 facing you guys and 4 facing the audience. Again, because of the length of the room, we're going to space them out. You guys will have access to plug in or do whatever you need to with it. And in the back room, we'll be able to control mic levels. And like I said, we're going to mic the room so they can hear you better, and it'll still feed to the online stream as well.
Any questions for Mr. Driggers? That is all I have, Mr. Madison.
Bunch of money.
Thank you, sir.
Bunch of money. How are we paying for that? Is that?
Local capital, everything we do
Capital
there.
project, okay, you mentioned that, just over everything. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to enter an executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibbons,
Second.
second by Ms. Sands. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous at 5:57.
You have your CDL?
Thank you.
I didn't see.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Yeager, second by Mike Holsey. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's official at 6:39. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Yeager.
I'll second.
Is that a second by Ms. Givens? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, 6:39.
I'm gonna
Thank y'all.